NFL draft season is well and truly here, and what better way to keep that ball rolling than to do some running back rankings. So I'm joined by my co-host, Nick Corbs. He's been absent for a few videos, but he's back to reclaim his title next to my side. He did get replaced by PFF's Max Chadwick, which if you haven't already seen that video, go and watch it. But New, you're back to do your running back rankings with me.
Dom, the hostile takeover didn't work. I'm back with a vengeance, and looking forward to doing this running back rankings.
So me and Nu are going to be going over our top 5 running backs ahead of the 2025 NFL draft. We don't know each other's rankings, so we're going to do it as we go. It's going to be a fun task for both of us to kind of see where we have these guys ranked. Might be similar, might be completely different. We also do have one honorable mention as well, so we'll be essentially ranking 6. Obviously, it's a really, really deep and really strong running back class this year. So there will be a lot of names that aren't here yet, but as we get closer to the draft, we will also be talking about those guys. But these are going to be the top guys in this class. So without further ado, Nu, let's get into it. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe for more NFL draft content from Nu, what I think is the best NFL draft content from British brothers out there.
I don't need to talk about British brothers. I think all brothers around the world. I think it's the top one brothers NFL podcast.
But yeah, the Armin Ras don't even want to mess with us.
Not the Kelseys either.
Not the Kelseys, exactly. We're up there. We're up there. So, Nu, you kick us off. Your honourable mention, i.e., your 6th ranked running back.
So what I want to say just before we start is that this is an incredibly deep position in this draft, and there will definitely be a few diamonds in the rough that we haven't watched yet. There will be probably about 15, 20 running backs drafted. And obviously, we're not able to watch them all now. But as the draft season goes on, I'm sure we'll be able to unearth a few gems in there. So this is some guy who I haven't actually watched yet, but who I think will be a diamond in the rough. I'm really excited to watch is Bashard Smith, the running back out of SMU. And so I watched a little bit of him in the Penn State game, but I wasn't actually watching him in particular. But the reason why I'm so excited to watch him is because he's converted receiver, Dom. Receiver, first year running back. Like Tyrone Tracy was this year, 5th round pick, went to the Giants, had a very successful year. I love that because that means they're great out of the backfield, can always see a way to playing, and they're just like a natural running back. It's their position they're meant to be. So I haven't quite watched him yet, but he's going to be one to watch for the future.
Yeah, I mean, the receiving skills are definitely something that you want from a modern NFL running back, and that's kind of what I've woven into my rankings as well as is that ability. Obviously, we look first at your rushing ability, how are you as a traditional running back, but I think with the way the modern NFL is going and with the success of people like Tyrone Tracy, but obviously Christian McCaffrey, it is a really important part of the position and something that you shouldn't overlook if you're trying to evaluate these guys. My honorable mention then, Nu, so my 6th ranked running back. Again, you're right to point out that these guys, I think we will later do a kind of like hidden gems episode, and like these later running backs will definitely feature. But for now, an honorable mention seems a little bit unfair for a running back that's still this good, but nevertheless, he is my honorable mention. He is my 6th ranked running back currently, and that is Caleb Johnson from Iowa.
Okay.
Is he in your top 5?
He is. He's my number 5.
Okay, perfect. Well, that works well. So I have him as my number 6. You have him as your number 5. He spent 3 years at Iowa. He's 6 foot, 225 pounds. I think he's just such a smooth mover. Like, he literally glides over the field. He's really smooth for that taller frame, 6 foot again. He's a one-cut runner. He sees the gap and takes it. He doesn't look back. He runs hard downhill, which is really important. He has the stature of a bell cow running back to be able to absorb those hits and be used as, be given loads of carries per game, like 20 touches, whatever it might be. I think he's got really good vision and anticipation, which is really important for a running back to be able to, not run into blocks, let them develop and kind of see where the holes are going to be before they actually appear. And he forced 66 missed tackles this year, which is 12th among FBS running backs in college football. I do think that the reason why he's my 6th ranked running back is because I think he does lack the dynamism of the other running backs that are ahead of him. He has like a high rate of missed tackles, but they're not necessarily the same type of missed tackles that the other ones create. Like, yeah, he'll run through an arm tackle and then will kind of get taken down by the second guy, whereas I think these other guys can kind of break like multiple in multiple runs. He doesn't also have that second gear of explosiveness in the open field, I find. Like, once he hits that top speed, which he hits pretty quickly, to be fair to him, but once he hits it, there isn't that second gear that he can put into and, win a foot race, basically. And I think when he does try and cut at that top speed, he loses his speed as well. He's only got 1 year of elite production. He had 777 rush yards in his first year at Iowa, 473 in his second year at Iowa, and now this year has 1,535. So obviously that's not like a big knock at all. It's just interesting that he only has that 1 year of production, or that high level of production. And he doesn't also offer much in the passing game. It's linked to what we were just talking about. Only 190 receiving yards this year, only 242 receiving yards in his entire career. It is Iowa. They're not exactly known for passing the ball that much, and they're not known for their quarterback prospects. Although, weirdly enough, the Iowa quarterback this year has some wheels on him. Oh my God, I was watching.
Kane McNamara.
I don't know who it is, but quick. Anyway, and he's also not great in pass pro. I think that's also really. I think when you're new to kind of watching college prospects, it's an easy thing to overlook. But to stay on the field as a 3-down back, you need to be good in the passing game and be good at pass pro, which is when you're blocking for the quarterback. That means you have to take on blitzing linebackers, or you have to chip edge rushers. And despite his size, 6 foot, 225 pounds is nothing to shake a stick at for a running back. He's not actually that good at it. So for me, the bottom line with Caleb Johnson is I think he'd be great in an outside zone heavy team. So that's anything in the Shanahan tree, 49ers, Vikings, Dolphins. Would absolutely love this guy. I mean, I think the Vikings would snap him up in a heartbeat. So, but he's a bit more scheme dependent than the guys I have higher up. So it's not that I think Caleb Johnson's bad. I just don't think he's as good as the next running backs I have.
Dom, I agree. But quickly before we talk about, I absolutely despise the pass pro stuff for college running backs. It's every single running back's con. Always. And the second they make it to the pros, you never hear pass pro about ever again. They never bring it up at the NFL level, but always these college running backs could improve pass protection. You're not drafting a running back to be a lineman. You're drafting a running back to get you first downs, to score touchdowns. You're not drafting him as a lineman. You can always teach someone to pass block. You can teach someone to cut block. You can teach someone to be willing. I think it's a complete non-factor in my personal evaluation.
See, I disagree. I don't think you can teach that that mindset in pass pro. Yeah, you can teach people. I think running backs like to stay on like to cut block in college because it means you don't have to try and stand up these bigger linebackers that are coming downhill. But I disagree. I think it is, particularly with rookies, a massive reason as to why they're not on the field. Like, look at James Conner and Trey Benson. Like, James Conner was the starting running back, not because he's more dynamic than Trey Benson, but because he's more solid in pass pro. He can hold up in those third and longs and block that blitzing linebacker or help chip a defensive lineman. And I agree that you can be taught it. I don't think it should be the decider, but I think it is really important actually in evaluating how soon a running back can make an impact, because that's what you're drafting these guys for, right? They need to, like, the shelf life of a running back is not very long. Like, it's not a quarterback. You're not taking them to, sit on the bench and develop. You need these guys to come in and start day one. And I do think that pass pro, especially, and it's not just pass pro, it's also just the passing game generally. Like, sometimes you're not in pass pro. If there is no linebacker blitzing, if there is no, I don't know, if everything's already sorted, then you filter out of the offensive line and you make yourself a target. He's not great in that either, though. So I think it's just generally the passing game is a concern for me with Caleb Johnson.
Yeah, the passing game is a concern, but what I would say about Caleb Johnson is that he's very much like a one-cut zone runner, like you said. He's very Iowa. He's very well drilled.
Yes.
He takes the ball, waits for a second, looks up, spots the gap, hits the gap. And he's very much plug and play. He's never going to do a Saquon Barkley, Le'Veon Bell, stop, look up, turn the field, juke two defenders, hurdle the next one, get into the end zone. But that's very rarely what's going to happen. He just does a job. He's plug and play. Even though you're right, he's scheme dependent, he's smart, he's dependable, makes the right decisions, makes the right reads. And because of that, that's why he's my number 5. I've got him as a late second, early third.
Yeah, I got him as a third.
Yeah, and as you might not know, Dom might be the worst dynasty GM of all time, and for some reason he keeps on trading away all our running backs. So we'll be looking at Caleb Johnson at the top of the second in the dynasty draft.
No, we've got the second overall pick this year. We avoided the fourth.
Of course we do.
We've avoided the fourth. Like, obviously, well, let's not ruin it. Let's not
give away our.
Let's not give it away. So that's my honourable mention, my 6th, and your 5th. Who's your 5th then, Nu?
My 5th is Dylan Sampson, the running back my 4th is Dylan Sampson, my running back from Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
My 5th was Caleb Johnson. Yeah. So Dylan Sampson, he'll probably run the fastest 40, I think, out of any of the running backs in this class. I really think he might get a sub 4.4, which would be absolutely amazing for his draft stock. He's a bit on the light side, a bit on the slim side, but what I loved about him, Dom, is he completed 80% of his third down carries. his size does not stop him. He's a powerful runner with great speed. And I really see that translating. The only thing is only 1 year production, only 1 year of above 120 snaps, which is worrying for a smaller sized player. So Dylan Sampson,
only 1 year above 120.
120 carries, not snaps.
Okay,
sorry.
I was going to say, good grief.
Sorry. Thanks for correcting me there. So I'm a bit worried about that. But that top end speed, that breakaway speed is, I think, maybe the best in this class. Even the players we're going to talk about later who have got probably more longer yard touchdowns end up sort of getting caught. You don't really see that translating. Whereas Dylan Sampson, I really do see that top end elite athleticism translating to the NFL.
I've not watched him yet, but I like that shout from you, because also what that means. So, first of all, let's talk about the speed. So, obviously, running backs can't. It's not about just relying on speed, but speed kills from the running back position, right? That's what the Dolphins running backs, Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert, and who was their rookie? Right?
I can't think. Yeah.
But either way, right? Devon Achane in particular, I'm not saying he's going to run as quickly as Devon Achane, but speed always kills in the NFL, even when everyone is faster, bigger, stronger, more athletic. And if that speed hits the open field and they get a well blocked run, they can house it, and that's what I love in my running back prospects as well. And that's kind of something that I'm going to talk about when I come on to my later ones. But then, so you got Caleb Johnson as your fifth. You've got Dylan Sampson as your fourth. So then I'll do my fifth.
Yeah, I've cheated a little bit. I must admit, I've cheated a little bit on my rankings. So just one last thing with Dylan Sampson. Forgot to mention, quick way to him playing. He just looks like a third down receiving back in the NFL already. He's great out of the backfield, a bit more undersized. Again, Dom, you said he needs help in pass protection. Not super valuable for me, but super valuable for you. If we were GMs, maybe we'd assess that differently. But I really like Dylan Sampson. He's got good upside and good play now potential as well.
Okay. This is interesting, though, because like I said, the fact that you've got two guys that aren't even in my top five means that I think you've omitted some bigger names here.
I've been a bit cheeky, is what I'd say, in what I've done on number three. But I'll let you go.
Oh, I know what you've done on number three. Okay, well, my number I think I know what you've done here. My five, which should link into your number three if I'm right in thinking, is Quinshon Judkins, the running back from Ohio State. Am I right in thinking you've grouped Judkins and Henderson?
Yeah, I've done a 3A and 3B. Yeah, I thought it'd be rude not to.
All right, okay, let's talk about Quinshon Judkins first, because he's my fifth ranked running back. So he's 6 foot, 219 pounds. Some bigger receivers, bigger running backs in this class. Quite a few 6 foot plus guys. It'll be interesting to see if they are actually 6 foot at the combine, because we all know how 5'11" short kings like to lie about their height. Quinshon he's got 3 years of top production in the SEC. He was at Ole Miss for 2 years. He had 1,567 yards in his first year in Ole Miss, 1,159 yards in his second year, and then 1,060 yards for Ohio State this year. So that's 3,700 plus career yards, which is crazy for a player that's only been playing for 3 years. You might see that for someone that's been a running back for 4 or 5 years, having 1,000 yard seasons at 19, 18, 20 years old is mad. He's just a really, really solid running back prospect overall. He can be a bell cow, being 6 foot, 219 pounds. He has the strengths to also do that, not just the physicality. He's got really good contact balance. He's a decisive runner. He can work in a zone scheme. He's only got 3 fumbles in his career, from 739 attempts, 3 fumbles. That is insanely great ball security, insanely great. He's got really quick feet, got a good jump cut. I think he's just a very, very, like I said, rock solid running back prospect that you really kind of can't poke that many holes in his game. But I will now try to, having said that. I think he does lack top end speed. He's not going to outrun NFL defenders. In a pure foot race, we saw him get caught in the national championship game. And that's kind of what I like more, which is why he's my fifth, as opposed to any hires. I do like that home run threat ability, which I think Judkins just doesn't quite have. I think he's going to run in the 4.5s, maybe, which is fine. It's not like it's not a disaster by any. Yeah, it's fine. But you are going to get chased from behind in the NFL running a 4.5. I think he isn't fantastic in the passing game as well. He's got 442 receiving yards in his career. And like I said, there's just questions about his home run ability for me, which really is my biggest knock on him. It's not even that like there's anything specifically about his game that I don't like. For me, he almost ticks every box. He's a really easy projection. I'm very confident that Judkins is going to be a really solid running back in the NFL. What you see is what you get. He's almost like the Jack Sawyer of running backs, right? Like you watch a few Judkins games, that's it. Like there's no tricky evaluation, there's no ifs or buts. He's just going to be that really solid player. He's a really high floor running back prospect who I think can go to literally any team, any scheme, and will do an absolute job. He just kind of lacks that real top end traits, which I personally look for.
It was a weird decision for Judkins to transfer. Like, obviously, they won the national title, so you can't call it a bad decision. But I think if he stayed at Ole Miss, I think his draft stock would be higher.
Yeah, I know. I think I agree with you because I think, ironically, it really helped TreVeyon Henderson.
Massively,
but I don't think it helped Judkins. But like you say, I mean, he's won a national championship. But it was interesting. Like obviously Ohio State had the best backfield this year. Maybe
Penn State
was up there
Singleton.
as well.
Yeah, he's coming out this draft, isn't he?
No, they both went back.
Oh, did they both go back?
Yeah. And Singleton and I can't remember the other one. But also, obviously, Jeremiah Love for Notre Dame was also really good. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, in terms of split backfield, TreVeyon Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, crazy. What do you think of Judkins, Noon?
Dom, I completely agree with you. I think the lack of top end speed does sort of limit him in terms of how valuable he can be. But at the same time, Saquon only ran a 4.4 in his combine. If you look at all the great running backs combine times, they're a lot slower than you think they are. And his play speed isn't that bad, but he's not going to have those 60-plus yard runs like you saw how Saquon did on the Eagles this year. That really carried them through the playoffs. Against that Rams game, Saquon had 2 and single-handedly beat the Rams himself. Judkins is not going to do that for you. And that's why I think he's a great, valuable player, and I think he's good, but again, I don't see that high ceiling that I see with both my 1 and my number 2. So, Dom, I agree. I think that 5's a bit harsh. Or is it your 4?
He's 5 for me.
Yeah, I think 5's a bit harsh, but I completely see where you're coming from.
So then let's skip to your third.
You did number 4, because otherwise we're just going to be too far ahead.
I don't think we will be, because let's talk about Henderson now, because he's my 3, and he's your 3B. Okay. So let's talk about TreVeyon Henderson, and we'll go back to my 4. So we both then have TreVeyon Henderson as our RB3, essentially, right?
Yes. So I think TreVeyon Henderson is... What's the Lions combo called? What, Knuckles and Sonic? Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so TreVeyon Henderson is Sonic. I think he's faster, better out the backfield, better hands, and he's a bit more dynamic than Judkins. I think Judkins is a classic... running back. He's going to be in the league for many years, but he's never going to be elite. I do see TreVeyon Henderson having the bear that more breakaway speed and also be more of a threat out the backfield. He has more of a chance to be on the pitch all 3 downs, and I think that is just massively more valuable. So I know I've got him as 3A and 3B, which I was kind of cheesy because I didn't want to leave Judkins out, but I do think TreVeyon Henderson's a better player.
I absolutely love Henderson, and you have taken the words out of my mouth there, Nu, because I agree. Like, I think that in a Jahmyr Gibbs-esque role where he can be the scalpel and someone else can be the hammer, you're going to get a fantastic player. He's 5'10", 208 pounds, 1,010 rush yards this year, 281 receiving yards. He is deadly quick. I think he's going to run a 4.3. I hope a 4.3, if not a low 4.4. His yards after contact is really good because of that speed. He ran round a safety who he was one-on-one with on the numbers, like by the sideline. He just ran around him because he's that quick. Like, the safety was flat-footed and Henderson just took off past him. He's explosive. I think Henderson's a threat to score anywhere on the field. We saw that in the national championship game right before the half, where he caught that screen pass and housed it. He has massive plays against both Texas, Tennessee, and Oregon, all in the playoffs. He's a big play threat as a receiver and a rusher. That's what I was talking about earlier as the quote-unquote modern running back, kind of like the Malik Neighbors as a modern receiver. I think Henderson is that kind of mold, but for a running back. He's got amazing ball security, 0 fumbles in 491 attempts. Again, it's what you need. You need a running back to not give the ball to the other team when you give it to them. He's really good in pass pro. He put Mason Graham one of the best players in this draft class, a defensive tackle who's like 320 pounds, put him on the ground with a chip. Like, lowered the shoulder, went right into him. In the Notre Dame game against a physical, strong defense, he was standing dudes up. Like, he's really good in pass pro, really good in the pass game, really good as a rusher. Like, for me, Henderson just ticks every box. Now, the weakness is that despite his yards after contact stats, he's not really a tackle breaker, right? Like, he'll run through an arm tackle, but he's not going to break a tackle in the same way that, say, a Caleb Johnson or even a Judkins is going to do so. You want him operating in space, not in a phone booth. Like, you want to give this guy tosses, you want to run outside zone, you want him just to like be in space basically. And he is smaller in size. And I think when he was the bell cow at Ohio State for the 2 years before Judkins came over, he missed time due to injury every year. So there is that question of, well, we've seen him try and fill that role as a 20, 25 touch kind of guy. And it didn't really work out, which is why I was saying earlier, that the Judkins move all really helped Henderson. I don't know if it really helped Judkins because it allowed Henderson to fill like a perfect role, essentially as a Jahmyr Gibbs-esque split carry backfield running back. Like, he had no more than 15 touches in any game this season, which is low. Like, that is a seriously low number. And it just meant that he was always fresh. So again, I think that for me, the bottom line, and why I honestly don't have Henderson higher, because I think he's a real my guy in this class, and he's someone that I absolutely love. I think he does project as being a split backfield running back. So, think Jahmyr Gibbs, say, or maybe even slightly like it was with, what's another split backfield? I was going to say like...
I think A-Chain and Mostert, that's not really a good example.
A-Chain and most... I mean, the most iconic one, I guess, is the Lions, right? With their because they have like a really complimentary guy. So if you have a kind of more thumper of a running back, or even just an older one, like if the Texans kept Mixon and we took Henderson, I would love that. For example, I think that would work really nicely. So for me, he's going to project as a split backfield running back, but that still works. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs was taken with what, like the 12th overall pick, and like
14th, I think, or the 12th or 14th. Anyway, high,
a high draft pick. I wouldn't take Henderson that highly, obviously, but we can see the kind of value that adds to your team as a home run threat running back, which Gibbs is. I think I would, if I need a running back, I would take Henderson 100%.
I like that evaluation. I did the knuckles and solid, but I didn't quite actually make the pro comp as Jahmyr Gibbs, which I think is a completely fair pro comp.
I don't know if it's exactly the same.
I know it's not.
It's more just like how they could win.
Role.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, do you think that running back by committee is the future of the running back position in the NFL? Or do you think we're going back to the days? Because even Saquon, Kenneth Gainwell takes a healthy amount of snaps. Or do you think it's more of a Derrick Henry style, he is the offense, you run through him?
I just think it's you get diminishing returns when you have like a true bell cow in like what it was in like the early 2000s, the 90s, like the old school NFL, where you literally would have like a guy who would get an insane amount of touches, and really the only person that can still kind of do that is Derrick Henry. But even then, the Ravens still gave a good amount of carries to who has number 40, the backup running
Justice
back.
Hill.
Yeah, Justice Hill was even getting a fair share of carries. Like, you're right, Kenneth Gainwell gets a fair share of carries for the Eagles. Like, why not just give someone else like 10 carries a game and have your starting running back be completely fresh? I would actually use Henderson as like a pure 50-50 split. Like, I'm trying to, like, if you had like maybe Derrick Henry, if you want to kind of give him more of a rest, would like as he's getting older would be a good option. But you need that thumper. You need, like, I think he'd be great with like a James Conner, for example, like in Arizona. Like, Trey Benson's not really like done much. I think he'd be fantastic in that scenario. Like, just give him that, like, be that electric threat from the backfield. And I do think that new, because especially in this class, right, where there's so many good running backs, that I think if you already have one, just take another one. Like, just stack these guys.
You can't have too many. They only help and complement each other. You can only get more weapons on the field. 2 running backs out of the backfield, split them out wide. The versatility, he's a weapon, and I think that's so important in the NFL, Dom. I completely agree.
Exactly. So then we got to go back to my 4th before we go on.
Going back to your 4. Yeah, I've done 5, 4, and 3. So
have you not done your 4?
Yeah, I did. I did.
Yeah. So my 4 new is Cam Skattebo, the running back from Arizona State.
Oh wow! Okay, I actually watched him, but he was not in my top 5 or even honorable mention.
Oh well, you're wrong, I'm afraid. So he's 5 foot
Okay,
11.
tell me why.
He's 5'11", 215 pounds. Cam Skattebo has aura. Right? He's got the intangibles. And, the kids call it aura. At my age, I should probably call it intangibles. I'm pushing 30 these days, so maybe I shouldn't use that word. But he is a running back who is greater than the sum of his parts. He's a fighter, leaves everything on the field. I mean, that Texas game was a clinic, really, in what you want your just a teammate, let alone a running back, to do. He seeks contact. He grinds out the hard yards. He will fight for every single inch. He's going to run through you if he can't run round you. You know how, like, Isaiah Pacheco just runs angry? Like, Cam Skattebo's a bit like that. Like, someone on the opposite team has pissed him off and he's going to enact pain on them as payback. And he just, like I said, I don't think he runs angry. He runs like nasty, like really nasty. Like 157 broken tackles, leads the Power 4 and is second only to Ashton Jeanty. Like, that is, and that's over the last 2 years. That is crazy. 157 broken tackles over 2 years. Like, just a different level. He's got underrated vision. He can be a bit aggressive at times, like he'll run into the back of his offensive line, like he doesn't really wait for those gaps or the blocks to develop, but he can see the field really well, and you just want him running downhill. And he's an underrated receiver as well. He's not a route runner, I'm going to talk about that in a second, but in the screen game, this guy's a weapon. He caught a go ball against Texas in the playoffs, fantastic catch. 829 receiving yards over the last 2 years, leads all running backs in the Power 4. Like, this guy's a weapon in the screen game. Yeah, he's not going to run a slant like Christian McCaffrey, but get him on a swing, get the ball in his hands, get him out on the perimeter, get him running downhill, and he's going to pick up some yards for you. Weaknesses, does lack the elite physical traits, right? He's not got great top end speed. I think he's going to run in the high 4.4s. He's not that agile either. He's like kind of plays with his hair on fire, but he's not that agile. And he isn't a route runner. He tried to run a hitch in that Texas game, turned the wrong way, made it look like a stick route instead. Like, he's not going to chef you up like that, but he is still a weapon in the receiving game. And for me, the bottom line with Skattebo, this guy's a football player. Like, he's going to make any team better, genuinely any team. If you've already got a running back, great, draft Cam Skattebo. Like, he's going to be a menace on special teams. Every player is going to want to play for this guy. Like, you saw the Texas game, no? He threw a touchdown, caught that ball, had 100 rushing yards on the ground, was sick on the sidelines.
Yeah, threw up at halftime.
Yeah, went back in. Like, he's a football player. Like, and I'm not one that usually subscribes to he's a football player. I kind of hate those cliches, actually. I think they're just a bit lazy. But for Skattebo, it genuinely fits because he's shown to be that guy. And having that mentality at a physical position like running back is really important. Like, you need your guy to fight on fourth or third and inches to get those yards. And Skattebo can do exactly that. So he's not going to be a bell cow who's going to start every game for you and get loads of touches. But genuinely, I don't think there's any team, even the Ravens, even the Eagles, who I wouldn't draft Skattebo too. Obviously, I want to see him get a more of a starring role, but as a high-end RB2 who can mix carries a bit like Henderson can, Skattebo is just going to be such a thumper, and I just know he's going to be good.
Dom, I think what you said about him is true, and I'm not going to take away from his pros, but I think the cons are so overwhelming. I don't think he's a patient runner. I think he's put his heads down, basically closes his eyes and just runs as hard as he can in a straight line, and hopefully someone gets in the way. But the big thing for me is there's so much tread on those tyres. He seeks and looks for contact every single time he gets the ball, which I love and I respect. But you're professional. You've got a career. You've got people to look after. He's going to get injured. He's not a big guy. He's not obviously he's a strong runner, but he's not built like Derrick Henry. And he just looks to hit linebackers all the time, which is fine when you're going up against Arizona and Colorado State. When you're going up against Roquan Smith and Fred Warner, I think that's a completely different issue. For me, he's Devin Singletary coming out of FAU. I think he's got so much tread in his tires that I just don't see him having a prime career more than 3-4 years.
No, I agree with you. I don't think Skattebo is going to be a big second contract running back. Let's put it that way.
But how can you value that highly in draft valuation if you think a player's only going to play for you for 3-4 years?
Because that's kind of how I see the running back position generally. I'd rather get top production out of a running back for 3-4 years, franchise tag and whatever, than pay a running back who's like 28 who is more likely to get injured. Like the Texans signed Joe Mixon. Like he was really good for us, but I would rather if we drafted like a rookie or whatever it was. Like that's the nature of the running back position. I wouldn't try and, again, it's not a quarterback. It's not a defensive lineman who's in their physical prime at like 28 when he's got a full bag of pass rush moves. Like running backs are running backs. These guys know exactly what they're doing. They hit the ground running in the league, almost literally. They translate really well. So it's not, I don't need my running back who I draft in the 3rd round to get a second contract. Like, I think that's looking at the position the complete wrong way. That's why I wouldn't take one in the 1st round. So, like, if you're drafting Skattebo in the late 2nd, so what? If he only plays for 3-4 years.
I know Saquon and Derrick Henry would like to disagree with you on that second contract point, but I do think there is some validity to it. I do understand where you're coming from. But with Skattebo, I think that's even to a greater extent. I think he's going to be in a wheelchair by the time he's about 28. He's like the paper straw of a running back position. He's like a disposable vape. He's gone pretty quick. He's gone pretty quickly. He's not going to last at the NFL, and all he's going to do is get one low tackle. He's going to take out his knee, and he's going to be an analyst on ESPN weekend. Do you remember when he threw up on the sidelines?
What has Skattebo done to you? What has Skattebo done to you? Like, he's not got an injury history. Like, TreVeyon Henderson has an injury history, but you're not concerned about that.
What I'm worried about is like we talked about with Jaden Daniels in the draft process. Obviously, not true. The way he runs is conducive to getting injuries. Even if he hasn't had one yet, that is not evidence that he's not going to get one.
No, it's not. But nor is the reverse, right? Just because he runs that, like it's unpredictable. Like someone can tear their ACL on a non-contact training session.
Yeah, you can get hit by a car across the road, but like that's not what I'm talking about.
No, but it is because you're trying to predict the unpredictable, which is injuries.
Of course, it's unpredictable to an extent, but Skattebo takes the predictability out of it quite a lot. It's you're much more likely to get injured for getting hit by a brick wall than it is running out of bounds.
I hear what you're saying. However, I'm not concerned about that. And I think if you're drafting a running back with the idea that they might get injured because they run hard, I think that's misguided.
No, but he runs silly hard. It's his USP. Is he runs hard?
It works.
Fine, but we'll agree to disagree on this one.
You're trying to deflate his tyres. Like, what are you doing? God, Jesus, you're a Skattebo hater. Let it be known. If you agree with me or no, let us know in the comments, by the way, because I need some Skattebo love, actually, because that really upset me. So, no. I imagine our 1 and 2 are going to be the same.
Yes.
Who's your 2?
Number 2 is Omarion Hampton, the running back out of UNC. I'm a big fan of Omarion Hampton. I want to give a quick shout out to my good friend Ed Fairhurst, who's currently in UNC right now. He said week 1, he said, look out for Omarion Hampton. He's the future. So he put me on early, so I'll give him a quick shout out. Omarion Hampton, I think, would be the number 1 overall running back in basically any other draft class. In the last decade, give or take the Saquon year, he is the number 1 running back in most classes, with obviously the exception of this year with someone we're going to talk about later. He is obviously so talented, but the big issue for me is I don't think UNC utilized him to his full ability. Do you agree, Dom? I think he has versatility out the backfield. UNC didn't really use that to his full ability. All he ran was like shallow crosses. They didn't put him on go routes like Cam Skattebo. They didn't fully utilize his bag, which I think is pretty deep. He's got good contact balance, good power through the first tackle, good speed, not elite, not like TreVeyon Henderson, I don't think. But I think Omarion Hampton is still very much first-round pick.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. In any other year where there isn't Ashton Jeanty, spoiler alert, who is obviously going to be number 1 on this list, then Omarion Hampton would be the number 1 guy. He's 6'1", 220 pounds. He has been fantastic for UNC for the last 2 years. Weirdly enough, I saw him at Georgia Tech when I went and saw UNC at Georgia Tech. Yeah, he ran for over 100 yards in that game.
Still you're on him before me.
Big up the Yellow Jackets. And he's a bell cow downhill runner. 6'1", if he comes in at that, which I'll be interested to see if he does, is 80th percentile or higher for running back. So he's a bigger running back. Not all of them are Derrick Henry, but that is big. And has the build to be given a lot of carries. He's a really fluid mover, good elusiveness for his size. He's not going to cut you out of your shoes, exactly, but he's good at making people miss. Like, he's got like no wasted movement. Like at 6'1", 220 pounds, you're not going to move like a Jahmyr Gibbs because you're just not built that way, right? He's patient but decisive. He can wait for blocks to develop. But when he sees that gap, he's taking off. Yards after contact, one person is never going to be enough to bring Hampton down. Like, it's always taking like 2, 3 plus guys to bring him down. He's got the second most yards after contact in college football this season, obviously behind Ashton Jeanty. I think he's got great top speed. Like, nobody can catch him once he's gone. He had 2 touchdowns versus NC State where he just hit the burners. People were trying to safeties were trying to get angles on him. Linebackers were trying to catch him from behind. No one was able to touch him. He hit 23 miles an hour on PFF's GPS tracking data. So, like, this guy has the wheels. It's not just like oh yeah, he's quick in a phone booth, or he's quicker than fast. Like, he's got the top end speed which you need from a bell cow running back that you can put on the field for all 3 downs. It's good in pass protection as well. 72 missed tackles forced this year. That's 6th in college football. Weaknesses, there are some tread on the tires there again. Me and New will keep talking about this, and it kind of is almost a bit of a cop out, it feels, to bring this up, because it is almost it's kind of relevant. It's down if you do, down if you don't, right? We've said that some running backs only have 1 year of elite production, so that's a knock. But then we're also saying, oh well, if you have 2 years of elite production, then you've kind of got tread on the tires. So
yeah,
it kind of is down. It is down if you do, down if you don't. But that is, unfortunately, the nature of the running back position. We're not saying that if you've only got 1 year of elite production that you can't then produce at that again. It is just worth noting that has only happened once. If you do have a lot of tread on the tires, that's not to say that you are going to get injured in the league. It is just worth noting that your body has taken so many blows and it can only take, so many more. So that is something to be considerate about. That doesn't mean they're not going to be good or impactful, but it might just mean they're not going to be good or impactful for as long as you might hope, right? I think his vision, I think sometimes he can lack some patience in gap scheme runs. And I think despite that really high speed, I don't think he's going to be a 4.3 guy. Like, I think he'll be a low 4.4. And I think he does sometimes lack some creativity in the open field. But for me, like you say, Nu, he would be the clear-cut RB1 in any other draft class without Ashton Jeanty. I think he's a hammer, not a scalpel. So TreVeyon Henderson is a scalpel, not a hammer. Those 2 guys in a backfield would be absolutely electric. But you're kind of wasting Hampton's ability to be a 3 down, stay on the field, like, top 5, 6 in total carries type of running back. And he's a really, really good player. I really wanted to not like Hampton and be a bit different and not have him as RB2. But I think he has to be, right?
Yeah, and also, this is maybe not a great analyst point. I love those powder blue jerseys, man.
Oh,
every time I turn on UNC film, I'm the same as you. I want to be a hater, but I just love watching them. It's some of my favorite films to watch. Amazing jerseys, going back to a field, and obviously Bill Belichick there next year. So I want to see what he does at UNC. But I completely agree with your take on Omarion Hampton. Really good player. I'm not sure if Jeanty and the effect of Saquon this year is going to bump him up or push him down in terms of running back. Because 2 running backs in the first. If I told you that even 5 years ago, you would have said that's outrageous. That is completely... every year you get a Bijan Robinson, you get a 1 player going in the first, but 2 running backs in the first. I'd be really interested to know when that last happened in the NFL. Because I don't think it's during the last, maybe even 2 decades. No, decade. Not 2 decades. But it would be a long time ago.
There's got to be, surely. Like, we got Saquon, we got Najee Harris, we've got Jahmyr Gibbs, but I don't know that these aren't all in the same class, obviously.
No.
We'll have to get Paddy to fact check that.
Yeah, we'll get Paddy to fact check it, but it would be an interesting stat to pull up because even if it is recent, it's very uncommon. So I wonder if Jeanty is actually going to negatively affect Hampton's draft stock in this instance.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I don't think Hampton will be a first round player.
Oh, I think it's end of the first. I think there's some teams at the end of the first who I love them at the Commanders. I think that'd be really good fun.
But they need tackle, they need wide receiver, like they need edge.
Of course, it's a luxury pick. I do agree.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
I would love Hampton at the Commanders. I think that'd be a really fun fit.
It would be. But like, this is the thing, is that like, I also think that there's a conversation worth having about the fact that the overall strength of this running back class means that you don't have to take Hampton. Like, I think he's the clear-cut RB2. But equally, if you want to take, say, a wide receiver at the top of the second, like maybe a Jack Besh or an Elikai Amano, or if someone fell out of the first, and then you get Judkins in the 3rd round, that's kind of better, right? So I think it's more a question of, does the overall strength of this draft class actually impact where Hampton goes? Because you can get a really good running back on day 3.
Yeah, that is actually a very good point, Dom. You can get a good receiving back. Why would you go Dylan Sampson when you can get a good receiving back in the 5th or 6th round even who can contribute? I think it depends like the discussion we were having about earlier, how do you value these guys? Do you value these guys as rookie contracts only or long-term answer to your team? If it's rookie contract only, go later rounds. But some teams who value the running back position more, who are more looking towards that second contract, will take Hampton. I don't know what teams those are. I don't have any good friends who are GMs, but I think that's how how you evaluate running backs is different, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's down to fit, it's down to value, it's down to, if you're picking it, if you like I said, day 2, running backs can be flying off the shelves, genuinely. Even if you don't need one, draft one. But then first ranked running back, unsurprisingly, Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. Tell me about him.
He's first of all robbed for the Heisman. Want to say that before. In our Heisman prediction episode, we both predicted Ashton Jeanty. Should have been Ashton Jeanty. And it actually really grinds my gears that he is not holding a Heisman right now. There's not a Heisman in Boise, Idaho. But to evaluate him as a player, he was probably the best player in college football last year. He almost broke Barry Sanders' rushing record. I think he was only like 30 yards off in the end, which has stood since the 80s. He has amazing contact balance, and more than anyone else in this draft class, his long touchdowns, he does it better than anyone. Saquon this year, offensive player of the year, arguably could have been the MVP, was so impactful because of those 60-plus yard runs. That's what separates you from good to great, from okay to elite, and Jeanty is elite in that. I don't have I think he's got 7 or 8 plus 60-yard runs on the year. All you need to do is turn on, especially his early season film against, I think it's Sacramento State when he gets benched at halftime. Obviously a lower level of competition, but he just runs the whole length of the field. They put 8-man boxes. His contact balance is so good that even when linebackers hit him, he just still manages to stay up. It's like they're tackling a tree that's been planted into the ground. They cannot get him down. And more than anything, like you said, is it intangibles? Is it aura? I guess it depends on your age. But his running back stance is so cool.
Yeah.
The Mike Myers Halloween edit, him just standing still, staring down the mic, the biggest player on their team, and just knowing that he's better than them. And obviously, it's a bad take to say he's a my guy because he's everyone's guy.
Yeah.
But I am such a big fan of Ashton Jeanty, and I think he's a top 10 overall pick.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with basically everything you said there. Ashton Jeanty was the best player in college football this year. I think you could argue that Travis Hunter's more talented and that what he did was more unique in being able to be like a genuine difference maker at 2 impact positions. But just as a pure single position player, Ashton Jeanty was the best at his position, 100%, and as a result, the best in college football. He had 2,595 rush yards this year, led the nation. 6-point yards per attempt, led the nation. 1,970 yards after contact, led the nation. And Ashton Jeanty after contact, so that 1,970 rush yards, would be second in total rush yards in college football. So Cam Skattebo had like 1,800 or something. Ashton Jeanty is 1. Ashton Jeanty after contact is 2. And he had 151 missed tackles forced in 1 year, led the nation. Like, you're right, New, to point out his contact balance. It's elite. It's Alvin Kamara is the only player in the league that I think comes close to what Jeanty has, and that's a compliment for both. I think Jeanty would come in and be 1A, 1B in terms of contact balance with Alvin Kamara. It's like he's kind of covered in like that stuff that the pinball has, and it just bounces off. Like it's like he's like Fall Guys, maybe, like jumping across the thing. Like it's just, bouncing. Like players just bounce off this guy, and he creates missed tackles forced. Broke the PFF record for that. He's explosive. He is well-rounded. He's a good receiver on screens. He had a minimum, like you said, like with your 60-yard runs, he had a minimum of 3 explosive runs. That's 10-plus yards per game. Like,
game-changing.
That's exactly it. Game-changing. Weaknesses, there are some. It's only fair to bring that up. 5'9", right? If you told anyone that a 5'9" running back potentially was going to go in 2025 in the first round, in the top 10.
From Boise State.
You'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I think it's not surprising that a lot of the running backs in this class are 6 foot, 5'11", that kind of area. 5'9" is on the smaller side. He might even be smaller than that, I think. He could even be 5'8". 215 pounds, though, he's a good build. He's not TreVeyon Henderson in pass pro, but he can hold his own. And there might be a slight physicality jump to the NFL coming from Boise State, being 5'9", being only 215 pounds. It's possible. I don't think it's going to matter that much, but I do think it's worth being aware of. And again, there's the lower level of competition coming from Boise State, but I don't really buy that because he ran over Oregon for 192 yards. Like, So I don't really care about that. It will be brought up though. And the pro con for me is if Bijan Robinson and Alvin Kamara had a baby. Just
Like that.
A fantastic, fantastic player. And I don't know about top. I mean, in theory, yes, top 10. I'm maybe a bit more of a value guy in the draft, and I would look at the rest of this draft class and think maybe. But if I am the Cowboys at 13 and he's on the board, I think you kind of got to take him. I think this guy is a generational prospect at running back, and it's not a very strong class. So, I'm kind of going against my rational side of my brain here. But man, he's going to be damn good.
Another downside to Jeanty, I think is important to mention. He doesn't really have that electric shimmy. He's not going to do, a double step, Barry Sanders style, make people look silly. He is much more north to south power contact balance than, spin move reverse hurdle. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You get to the end zone, it doesn't matter how you get there. Maybe it's not as flashy or as pretty, but doesn't mean it's any less impressive.
Yeah, I agree. So let's then recap our honorable mentions 1 through 5. So my honorable mention first is Caleb Johnson, the running back from Iowa. Well, I'm not going to say running back because they're all running backs.
Yeah,
so my honorable mention, Caleb Johnson from Iowa. My number 5 is Quinshon Judkins from Ohio State. 4 is Cam Skattebo from Arizona State. 3 is TreVeyon Henderson from Ohio State again. 2 is Omarion Hampton from UNC. And number 1 is Ashton Jeanty.
Yes, and my honorable mention was Bashard Smith out of SMU. Number 5, Caleb Johnson, Iowa. Dylan Sampson, Tennessee. And then the 2 Ohio State guys, TreVeyon Henderson, Quinshon Judkins at 3A, 3B. But I think TreVeyon Henderson's a better player. 2, Omarion Hampton. And number 1, Ashton Jeanty.
Yours is a bit of a hipster list there, Noob.
Yeah, I quite like it. I think it's a bit different.
It is a bit different. But if you agree or disagree with either of our lists, if you've missed anyone out, then let us know in the comments. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe for more NFL draft content. We're going to keep releasing these videos and more position rankings. We're going to do our big board before the draft. We're going to keep coming with mock drafts. So if you don't want to miss any of our videos, which I think is quality, then make sure you subscribe to not miss out. But I've been your host, Tom Corbs. That's been Nick Corbs. We'll see you on the next one.
See ya.